Hello and welcome to Digital Marketing Masterclass. We have a very special show for you today. We have Roy Atadgy. He is my senior content administrator. Roy, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, this is awesome. So I recently wrote an article for Forbes, a little small flex there, but what was pretty cool about the article is that it allowed me to kind of talk about this problem that I've been experiencing for the last 21 years, and I talk about it with my shop, and every time Roy and I get together, it seems like we keep coming back to this theme. And the theme is, are we building our house on sand? And what I mean by that is that we work with some really big brands throughout the United States, and they say, hey, I need you to win on Google, and I need you to win on Facebook, and I need you to win on Instagram and LinkedIn and all that stuff and all these different platforms. But the reality is that I don't own any of those platforms. And so they have all the rules, they have all the regulations, and they control your future, whether you like it or not. And so you gotta be honest with yourself and say, you know what? At any point in time, all of this, we might have to pivot, or it might have to change, or everything that you know right now, it's not a guarantee that it'll be here tomorrow. So let's take an honest assessment and say, hey, before I get involved in this, what can I really know? What can I really trust? I'm not saying don't use them. You have to use them, but you got to know where you stand before you start. And so I thought we could unpack that step by step today. And so I brought Roy on, and he's going to ask me some questions, and between the banter of him and I going back and forth, I think we're going to learn a lot. So Roy, why don't we dive in?
I mean, I think as I was reading the article again on Forbes to prepare for our discussion today, one thing that really struck me was, why don't we run our businesses, and specifically the marketing campaigns within those businesses, like we do our personal lives, right? We don't just rely on one friend for all of our support, or at least we shouldn't. It's a lot of pressure. We diversify our investments and our life savings. We diversify our expression, by having hobbies outside of work. So why are we not applying this to marketing? It would seem so natural to want to have that safety net. What do you think's causing this?
Well, I mean, I think that you have either the time or the expertise to know multiple different platforms and how to be good on all of them. And so if I'm a company that has maybe one marketing person, we joke around, we call that person Marketing Mary. Marketing Mary is already working a ton of hours trying to be good at the things that she does know. And then for her to be honest, to use maybe an outside vendor or another company to be good at the other platforms that she doesn't know. And then all of a sudden there's just so many platforms and there's so many things you got to be good at. You just wake up one day and you're like, I'm either going to have to hire multiple different vendors, or what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make choices. And these choices are going to be hard to do, but I'm going to have to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can only be good at social media, or maybe I can only be good at search, or whatever that is. And then you wake up one day, and then the route you did choose, if they have a major change, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a lot of trouble. And it's only because you don't have this huge team to do all these things, and marketing is moving so fast. You know what I mean?
I mean, and you've been in this space a long time, right? I mean, you've been in the space since 2001. So when did you start to see this becoming a problem, that companies were kind of staking everything on just one or two independent solutions, yep, and not having a system-based approach?
Well, I mean, I think at the time what I was doing is that I was building websites, and the websites had to rank on search engines. And then all of a sudden, unfortunately, we're a lot of people that were gaming the industry. You know what I mean? If you can game the search engines, you will win. You will get a lot of business originally, but eventually they catch up. You know what I mean? And so it can be pretty dangerous. And I think there's not an SEO guy who's been in this chair long enough to say that, you know what, we didn't do things to try to win for our clients and then find out later that, you know what, an algorithm, we woke up one day and it was like, I don't know, it was almost like a little bit of like the stock market crash. You're like, oh my gosh, everything we've been resting our hat on, or, resting our approach on, it just moved. And now we have to be resilient and solve this thing, I don't want to use the word cheating because I don't think we were cheating. I think we were pushing the envelope, but I forget who it says is something like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. We were always trying to get to the edge of the envelope without feeling like we were cheating to get the best possible results. And that's where almost all marketing companies are trying to do, is we're trying to edge out the competition.
Right. I mean, everyone's doing the best they can, right? You know, they're working within whatever system, whatever rules and regulations are there for the taking. So, you know, you can't blame them in some cases.
Yep. We got a lot more conservative after we got bitten the first time. And so that we got bitten really hard in around 2013. There was an update from Google. At the time it was called Penguin. And our approach was working and working and working. And we woke up one day and it was just gone. And I was talking to my senior strategist and he's like, I didn't see this coming. You know what I mean? Google makes 500 to 600 algorithm changes a year, but we never thought we would just wake up one day and it'd be Armageddon.
Right. So those 500-600 a year are kind of smaller, right? You know, they're a little bit smaller. This was a huge algorithm change.
Well, they didn't used to do 500, 600. They used to do big sweeping ones, and you would wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, today's the day. You know what I mean? I didn't have the stomach for that, to tell you the truth. I just, there's people that can play with fire and adjust and pivot and do really amazing things. I personally it made me sick. You know, like I can't deal with uncertainty like that, you know? I know other SEO companies, one in particular that just stayed resilient and continues to stay ahead of Google, and they do amazing things for their clients. I took a step back and I took a more conservative approach, and I don't hit home runs anymore. I just hit a crap ton of singles.
I want to talk a little bit about something we were discussing the other day, which is, you know, partly why the news doesn't work. You know, why things are so fragmented in certain news channels. Yeah. And partly I think it's for the same reason certain marketing campaigns that you're talking about, you know, aren't working. If you're getting information, or in this case, trying to attract clients from a single source point, whether that be SEO, social media, or retargeting ads or paid ads or what have you, you know, you're kind of at the whim of these centralized platforms that can change the rules at any time. So whether that's Twitter, Facebook, Google, I mean, let's say if you stake everything on app tracking, you know, and retargeting through iOS, you know, this new update really, really affects you, right? This new update that you talk about in the Forbes piece. If you stake everything on SEO, you know, Google algorithm change like Penguin can kind of bring you to your knees. I mean, this is one of the best points I think you make in your piece, is that we're staking. I think you said something to the effect of, you know, we're having our campaigns on platforms that we do not own and whose rules, you know, can change at any time. So what's kind of like your remedy for that? You talk about a system-based solution, but can you kind of parse out what that means in layman's terms?
Well, the first thing is obviously diversification. And so what I do is we help our clients develop a comprehensive system so that we're going to be, from a lead generation standpoint, we're going to be very good at search, but we're going to be able to develop leads from social media, from paid advertising, through content marketing, and basically like email blasts and things like that, targeted email blasts. So we're going to know how to generate leads that way, and then we're going to nurture leads and we're going to convert leads. But the thing is, though, is that if I wake up one day and SEO, they've made a major algorithm change in SEO, I'm going to double down on the other ones. If I wake up one day and all of a sudden in the nurturing process, Apple does a privacy update and cookies barely work effectively in Facebook, then we're going to have to take different approaches. If you wait for the platform to change the rules and you wake up and have that really brutal day, you know, where you're that Armageddon day, by the time it takes you to figure out what to do about it, how to pivot and stuff like that, you could have lost 6 months, even a year. But if you already had the pieces in place and you can sort of just pivot, it's you know, that's going to be a much better strategy. And if you ever try to sell your company, the last thing your investor wants to know is you're a one-trick horse on how to generate leads and nurture leads. You're dead. Meaning your multiple will be in the toilet.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, so that's kind of what you mean by I think you used the word nimble in the article, you know, so that, you know, when a sudden change happens in one area, you can kind of pivot to the ones that, you know, weren't affected, right, to kind of bolster the system, right? So it's not necessarily saying that a system-based approach or diversifying your marketing approach solves everything, because inevitably these huge changes are going to happen. It's just when it happens, it's going to affect you much less because you've taken all of your eggs out of the one basket and kind of deposited them in all these different areas to strengthen it. Yeah.
I thought I saw this analogy. I read this morning that if Amazon is down even for a single second, it would cost the company, in theory, $1.6 billion with a B. It's like crazy, right? Billions. So they use this thing, it's called a CDN, which is essentially all of their content is on different servers, and they're using, whether it's AI or whatever technology, so that if the server goes down, server one goes down, it immediately jumps to server number two, number three. So there's this redundancy. And that's what we recommend that companies do with their marketing is you have a focus area, but you also have backup generators.
Right, right. So out of all those pieces of marketing that you talk about in this piece, which one do you think is like the most crucial? Let's say like a company doesn't always have the time to do, a system-based approach. What is like the one or one of the best solutions that they should be paying attention to? What's most vulnerable today? Is it SEO? Is it, social media? What's kind of the Achilles heel when you're going to companies and saying, hey, we need to strengthen this first, right? We need to really focus on this first.
Well, I think that the least vulnerable is paid advertising, because when all else fails, you can pay the man, you know what I mean? But it's also significantly more expensive. And anybody who has been in advertising long enough, you're not one ad away from changing your stars. You're just not. You know what I mean? Ads are very, very sophisticated. And whether you're using a set of ads to bring awareness and then other ads to nurture, no one basically marries someone on the first date. And when we create ads, we think that they do. All right. Your ads are the hook, and then they bring you to better content. The better content makes you break down that barrier of trust. And then you buy from people that you know, like, and trust. You know what I mean? And so the ads, if SEO goes away or some of the paid advertising some of the social media goes away, you can always pay to bring that traffic. I don't want to live there, because the problem with paid is that it doesn't compound. And what I mean by that is that your SEO is like an annuity. All right. If I get on the first page of Google, unless I get beat by my competition, every single month, I paid once to build that really great article, and then it climbed the charts, maybe using SEO or whatever. And then it continues to score, and then I compound on putting more and more effort in other pages, and so on and so forth. When my budget ends in ads, I'm invisible. So it never compounds.
You're saying it's basically not sustainable to just throw money at the problem, right? Like there's no way to effectively cheat the system, or at least not as much as they used to be able to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't say that that's not true. I think you'd have to be aware that the cost per acquisition for your clientele, right, will almost always, you can go down, you can get cheaper ads and stuff like that, but you will always be paying. The SEO effect is like that store is always open and you're not paying for the electricity to keep it on. Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, as you write more and more content, you get more and more visibility, and you're not paying for all these other locations. In the paid ads world, what's great about paid ads that's very hard to do with SEO. What's great about paid ads is the targeting is second to none. They know everything about everybody, and I can do that. The second thing is that in theory, I can use the numbers of how much money I spend in ads and how much return I got, so I can know two numbers. One is my cost per acquisition cost, and my second one is it's called ROAS, which is the return on advertising spend. All right? That knowledge is power. All right? That's amazing, but it's expensive. So some people just say that's the cost of doing business, and that's fine. But SEO and content can be the golden goose. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And if you just go paid advertising, you'll never have that compounding effect.
Right. So it's also that, I guess what I'm hearing here is that developing, a system-based approach not only prevents you from having a single source of failure, but it's going to beat out just throwing money at the problem, essentially, right? Is that accurate? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
If it's done correctly, yeah. The hard part about content is that when people get it wrong, and it's easy to get wrong. And what I mean by that is that they don't say enough to establish themselves as a thought leader, and so that they're just another Me Too. They're just another gong in a sea of gongs. You know what I mean? Like just noise. You're a noise machine. You know what I mean? And so if you're not going to have a real strong opinion, or you're not going to back it up with strong internal data, or you're not going to say, this is why we're unique in the marketplace, right? You can spend a lot of money on content and it's probably not going to move the needle. You know what I mean?
Especially if you're not writing for a buyer's journey, if you're just stopping at awareness level content and thinking, there's so many people out there that think, I'm going to write this amazing blog. Everyone's going to come to me. I'm some kind of special unicorn. And often that's not the case. You need to be able to develop that consideration level content to bridge the gap from awareness to decision. Otherwise it won't happen.
Because in my awareness, the main goal of my awareness content is the problems that you are feeling, Mr. Client, are real. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say empathy. And I'm going to talk about the problems that you might not even be knowing about. So you thought it was, on a scale of 1 to 10, you thought it was probably a 2. It's my job to tell you it's probably a 6 or a 7. It's a bigger problem than you think. And then in the awareness thing, whether you choose us or somebody else, it is solvable. All right? In the awareness stage, I'm not saying fair tech. I don't even do that. I just talk about, let's get very clear on the problem. In the consideration stage, I'm going to nurture you to say, okay, now that we've agreed there is a problem, all right, these are possible solutions. And in that group, we could be one of them, but these are the things you don't know about. These are the things you aren't seeing. These are your blind spots. This is what's possible. And then in this decision level stage, I'm going to say the reason why I know that the problem is so bad, and I know what the possibilities are. Maybe I've established myself as a thought leader. If I know A and I know B, don't you trust me to be the provider, to know C? And so that's sort of what I want to do. I want to earn the right to be heard. You know what I mean? And I know it sounds weird to say I want to be liked, but I keep going back to this. People buy from people that they know. I've done A and I've done B, that they like. I wasn't a jerk that was salesy all along, and that you trust. If you don't trust me, how did I know about A and B? And why are you still here? You know what I mean? And so that's sort of what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean?
You're helping to bridge that gap, but you're trying to do it in a nurturing way. You're not just, pounding that, buy now. You're not trying to hit them with calls to action early on. Otherwise, they're not going to trust you. And we live in this era of distrust. And, in marketing, it can happen too. So you really need to be careful.
Yeah. So, you're in Israel now, but when you were living in Westchester, did you ever go out to like Wildwood in the summertime? You're familiar with Wildwood? Yeah. So you go to Wildwood, and things people don't know. Maybe you've seen Boardwalk Empire. That's Atlantic City. Further down the coast was Wildwood, and Wildwood would have these really cheesy T-shirt stores. And you wouldn't walk too close to the T-shirt stores because literally the salespeople were so extreme that they would grab you off of the boardwalk and they would put a T-shirt up against you, and they're like, "This is perfect for you." And I'm like, the T-shirts are always like super cheesy. It would be like, exactly, 100% Italian, 100% perfect. I'm like, dude, I'm Irish. You know what I mean? Right? And we're like, that is the creepiest, awful thing in the world, right? And then we buy websites, and we're like, how come people won't buy from us? Because the first moment we met them, we're like, Fairtech's awesome. You're like, they're not going to believe you after the first try. You know what I mean? They're like, of course you're going to say that about yourself.
Yeah, that's why marketing has a lot to do with psychology, right? Like we're actually thinking ahead to how, if it were us and we don't want to be sold to, how would we approach it? From a content perspective, how would we try to guide them? So most, like you said, you're trying to establish yourself as a thought leader. I mean, publishing in Forbes is one way to do that. I mean, that's an incredible achievement. And what it'll establish is, hey, if you are a company that is kind of just sticking to one solution or putting all of your eggs in one basket, eventually you're going to sink with the ship, right? Like the marketing environment is too complex now for you to just stake it on one thing or another. But I mean, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about CMOs, all over the country. And I wonder, can you sympathize with companies who maybe don't have the time, money, or energy to diversify their marketing? I mean, what should those companies and the CMOs of those companies do with the limited time and resources they do have? But let's say they have a sincere urge to put a system in place. Do you think companies are resistant to it, or is it just a matter of expertise that they don't have?
Couple different things. They might not have the budget to do it right because we are a team-based approach, which means that we have the subject matter experts in all the critical areas, whether it's social media, SEO, lead generation, through email, stuff like that. We have a nurturing engine through HubSpot and drip marketing and conversions. We have all that stuff and all those subject matter experts all in one house. And so we make that CMO the quarterback, and then they use our team to execute. So option one is they didn't know something like that could exist. Or two, they've been burned by one in the past that someone talked like me and they didn't get what they actually wanted. Or three, they believe that, you know what, I've got a special sauce and I'm really good at this one thing. And I'm gonna, I'm just gonna double down and just hope that that thing never, that industry never pivots. But like I said in the article, it happened in SEO, then it happened with Facebook. All right, SEO, JCPenney's, never thought SEO would change, got crushed. Starbucks with Facebook got crushed. Privacy ads, everybody using Facebook ads, right? In other words, we thought, oh, those days are over. I'm like, no, it's not.
I mean, and you're seeing this happen even to the biggest companies, right? JCPenney, Starbucks. I mean, if they're not immune to all these changes, then we're saying neither are you, neither is anyone.
Yep.
We're
not talking about 2022 JCPenney's. We're talking about JCPenney's when they were a real deal in the marketplace. You know what I mean? Like this was 2012.
They dug their heels in. I think they got, here are the consequences of that. They're no longer a player.
Yep. And now any of those players that are trying to compete with Amazon, it's just like you don't even have a chance.
Right. Amazon seems to have kind of cornered the market. They've optimized everything.
They're a monopoly. I mean, everyone knows it. It's a monopoly, but we like getting our stuff in 24 hours. But like even today, Amazon said, we're going to start charging 5% more for gas and inflation. So when everyone's all in one marketplace, they can change the rules.
Right. Now sellers have to pay 5% more, put the surtax on.
Exactly. Right.
But you're seeing that even that won't even change people's appetite for Amazon, right? For them, it's like, well, you're kind of stuck because they're a monopoly. What are you going to do? You're going to fork over the 5% because you have to.
But my thing is it just echoes that we never owned Amazon. So there's tons of businesses that make their living off of Amazon, and Amazon can wake up one day and change the rules. And now all of a sudden, any products that are the color blue can't be sold on a Thursday. I'm making, you know what I mean? I don't know what that means.
It's an extreme example, but yeah,
right?
Definitely.
But if they said that preposterous thing, what are you going to do? Oh, okay, I'm going to pull my stuff from Amazon and then have no search visibility, no online store, no nothing. It's like we built our house on Amazon, and that is a house on sand because you don't own the sand. Bezos does.
So essentially, by building a system, you're kind of predating a decentralized way of using centralized systems, essentially, right? You're just kind of spreading out the risk across, centralized platforms in the hopes that just one of them doesn't pop up and do something.
And it's not just diversification. And if we haven't nailed the point on diversification through a comprehensive system, hear me loud and clear. The power of a comprehensive system is diversification. The next thing is own your own content and own your own database. So what happens here is we go and we use these platforms for lookalike audiences and other stuff, right? They own that audience, all right? When you communicate to them, you have to go through Facebook to do it, or you have to go through Google to do it. Always find a way to claim your potential clients' email addresses, and always try to use technology tools to learn more and more about your audience, because you're only going to be as good as your database. And if you wake up one day and you're Toys R Us and the only one who owns your database is actually Amazon, when you look at a valuation of Toys R Us, they have nothing to stand on because they don't own their clients. Amazon did. You know what I mean? It was a massive problem. It was just like crazy. It was like someone told them that the golden rule of you're only good as your own database, it doesn't matter anymore. And then all of a sudden they are bankrupt. And they're like, how did we get here? I'm like, well, because you broke a golden rule.
No, I mean, and that's one of the benefits of having a digital marketing system in place. Digital marketing system that you put in place, that is able to get leads, nurture leads, and convert leads into clients is essential. And one aspect of that is leveraging the technologies that you're talking about, like HubSpot, so that you can really kind of bring your data back in house, right? So you don't have to depend on these external forces, giving you access or not. I mean, that can crush a business, absolutely crush them. So that speaks to your point even more.
And then there's other forms now. We're starting to see things with programmatic advertising. With programmatic advertising, we're going to use the power of AI. And all of a sudden, like if I'm working with a client that is a knee surgeon, right? And he's going to say, I serve clients in this geographical area. And everybody who went to livestrong.com or wellbeing.com who's reading about knee pain, my ads are going to be literally in line with that ad that you're reading, right? All the technology is doing is saying this ad topic matches the ad topic that people are reading. All right. And so it's a little bit pixel or cookie independent. And so that won't change either, meaning people that have knee pain, when they read knee pain from a different source other than your website, they will still be interested in knee pain, on how to solve that knee pain through your products and services. Okay. And so what it's doing, it's matching what we call content intent. So that is just one of those other things. But again, you sort of had to pay to get there. I'm not anti-paid ads. I'm just saying be aware that it won't compound.
Right. And that's really important to note. If people think that they can just jump to the front of the line, I mean, you can, but A, it's going to cost you, and B, it's not, it's an independent solution that can only take you so far.
Yep. It will, yeah. Unless you factor that into the cost of your service. You know what I mean? If I'm selling a cake and I know that my ingredients are 50 cents on the dollar, and in that 50 cents is my cost per acquisition, then I can live with that. I can base my business knowing that that's the cost of service. The same way I know the price of sugar and I know the price of the electric to keep the bakery open, and I know, you know what I mean? Like, that's what's cool about ads is it can make it almost at times feel like a fixed cost. Not always, but humor me. You know what I mean? But if you want to get more people to come, you're gonna have to pay more. Where, some of the other platforms, if it's an annuity, you're not paying more. Sometimes more people come to it because, the search intent of the people out there looking for the products and services, you know what I mean? Like, they just found your content more, And ideally, if you're consistently communicating, more and more your content gets on the first page of Google, and you just start winning that way,
Right. So I mean, you talk about in this article about that the alternative is threefold. And we kind of, touched on two out of those 3 points, right? One was diversifying your marketing in a comprehensive system. The second is truly owning your engaged database and making sure that that's all in-house. And the third is maximizing the power of your brand. And I really love how you ended the article here. You said, ultimately, a battle-tested brand shines through adversity. Stay true to your unique selling proposition and your values. They're the only things you truly own and that no one can take away from you. Can you expand on that? What do we mean about kind of maximizing the power of our brand in terms of a solution here?
Well, if you have a really great products and services and you can tell a very captivating story, right? If they changed the delivery method, if they took away all my megaphones, if you've told a good enough story and your products and services are truly good, they can't take your website away from you, and they can't take your products and services away from you. They can take the megaphones away, but if your products and services are good, you should be able to continue to deliver that value because your products and services are good. The challenge that I find is companies are so interested in the megaphone that they never stop and say, you know what, this is what makes us great. This is the audience we serve and the value we bring. You know what I mean? And this is why you should trust us. This is why you should like us. This is why you should buy from us. So we're so anxious to be like, get me more people, give me more, we joke around, we call them like scalps on the wall. I'm like, well, what happens if I win? What happens if I bring you all the traffic? What are they going to do when they get there?
Definitely. I think one of those times that we could see how battle-tested brands, were shining through adversity was during COVID. I mean, right? Everybody locked in their house. You couldn't go out. You couldn't go to physical stores. So who were the COVID darlings, right? These these companies that were able to push everything online or to create online experiences, create new experiences for people, right? Like Zoom was a thing before the pandemic, but now it's a household name because of it, right? And they delivered a great product. So all those COVID darlings, did really, really well when others were kind of suffering because they were able to kind of move things online, find different channels, and above all, they had a brand that in a time of adversity, people trusted ultimately,
Yeah. Yeah. And a little bit of luck involved too. You know what I mean? Being in the right place at the right time. To this day, if you were to ask me, how come Google Meet, which is free, didn't take off and Zoom, which in theory you paid for, did? Like, I can go into some psychological things, but I'm not entirely know. I feel like Zoom was in the right place at the right time, and good for them. And Google already had a reputation of being confusing, and GoToMeeting had a reputation of being crap. And you know what I mean? It was a very weird time.
Zoom found the sweet spot.
It found that sweet spot of timing. And they gave out their platform for free for 30 minutes, right? I think it's 30 minutes. You can use Zoom for free for 30 minutes, right? Because they knew that at 31 minutes, people are like, oh, $20 a month. That's a hamburger and a Coke. Inflation. Wink. You know what I mean? But
yeah, saw those new numbers yesterday. It didn't look great.
Yeah. Anyhow, but yeah, so I think that brand is a very confusing thing. When you're a young company, all of these marketing companies come to you and they say brand, 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 and you spend so much minutia on a tagline, a logo, and like fluff. And I know this sounds very weird, but the large majority of them choosing you had nothing to do with your logo and your tagline. But the story, when I think of brand, I think of like, what stories are you telling? How are you engaging your audience? How well do you know your audience? How much are you being a solution when they needed you most? You know what I mean? It's like
connecting on an emotional level with your target audience is it's hard to put like a specific price tag on that or a certain valuation on that. I mean, some have, right? I've read articles where they've said, the value of just the name and the logo of McDonald's or Starbucks is untold billions of dollars, just for that. So your brand can definitely go a long way in valuing yourself,
Yeah. But, I'm not sure when Pepsi paid, I forget what they paid. I'm going to make up the number, but like $10 million for an optimization of their logo, whether they got the return on investment on it. I didn't say, you know what, I normally drink Coke, but that Pepsi's got a great new logo. Maybe I'll try them.
Right. People already entrenched in their brands, right? I mean, it goes to showing about brand loyalty, right? I mean, Pepsi tried to kind of just modernize their logo, and okay, but that doesn't matter for Coke drinkers,
But there's a lot more to things than you could ever imagine. So, like, this isn't a gotcha statement, but what color is Superman? Not white, not like saying Caucasian. I'm saying what color is Superman's outfit?
Yeah, he's got the blue outfit and the red cape and
yeah. But have you seen Superman the last three Supermans? It's navy. It's navy blue and red, because the color theories have changed. Primary colors are not fashionable right now. All right. And so they literally said, we're not going to put him out in royal blue tights because royal blue doesn't sell right now. So we're going to make it navy blue and red. So you can still absolutely make the connection, right? Yeah. I mean, my point is that while brands will evolve and it'll change, it's actually outside forces that often force brands to change. But the messaging should always stay the same, we talk about certain corporations that are chasing down certain social justice issues. I personally think that's a major flaw. I'm not saying you play it safe, but I'm saying you're alienating, whether they like it or not. 50% of the country leans one way and 50% of the country leans another way. And I'm not so sure why they're choosing one over the other. I don't get it. Maybe they know analytically that it's working, right? But I think that they're going to look back and they're going to say, well, when did our argument change? And it's like, well, we started just following the herd. And I think that Rome is fickle.
Yeah, it can definitely be misguided. That can definitely be misguided. You know, I mean, but you did also have tech darlings that came out. I think last year, Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, put out a memo to the entire company, to the entire staff saying, listen, feel free to support what you want to support outside of work. But when you come to Coinbase, you're coming to work on whatever their goal is, right? To decentralize money. And you saw some people kind of standing up in Silicon Valley saying, listen, we need to appeal to a broad audience, right? You can't make everyone happy. And the more time you spend trying to make everyone happy and trying to attach your brand to too many corporate social responsibility initiatives, it can actually, backfire sometimes, right?
Yeah. And I'm not saying I want corporations to not have a heart. What I'm saying is that what's fashionable today might not be fashionable tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, you're tied to these things, I mean, I don't know. Like it's a very weird world that we're living in right now, But when I'm saying the power of your brand, right? The power of your brand, like stay true to that. Like I'm afraid that certain brands are chasing the herd, and instead of making valuable statements about who they are and the value they bring to the market, because that is a louder voice, whether they like it or not, than whatever is popular on social media right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm scared that they're chasing what's trending and not doubling down on who they are, the value they bring, and how I can make your life better, simpler, or more, whatever that is. You know what I mean? But these engines, the reason why I'm saying they can't take it away from you unless you let them.
Unless you give that up, whether that's to a certain trending thing like you're saying, or just staking it all on one platform. Yeah, I agree with you. Those trending things can be great for you in the short term, but I think people are starting to, be very, very skeptical about things like that, right? So if a certain brand or a certain company supports one thing that's trending today, people are kind of looking at it and like, okay, you guys are just being opportunists. This isn't actually core to your brand, right? And so to just sit down and figure out what's core to your brand can help you in every aspect of marketing, right? I do content strategy. Telling stories is what it's all about for me, because at the end of the day, you want your raving fans and your raving clients to then go out and proselytize to other people to be like, hey, this company is really cool. They provide a great value and a great service, and I like their values. They align with my values. So more than all the marketing things that you can do, you're right. It's about staying true to who you are as a brand, and that can get you farther than anything.
I mean, there's going to be bigger companies like McDonald's that have endless ad budgets and stuff like that. They have a lot more freedom to get there. But I'm very shocked about how the organizations that I work with that are 20 million to 150 million, right? That you think that they have an unlimited ad budget, they don't, right? And yet they're choosing things that seem cool. I literally want to say they just seem cool over all the stuff that they should be doing to win trust.
Yeah, trust should be the first thing that you should be going after. And, after that, it's kind of nurturing that trust. The minute that a customer loses faith in what you're providing or what you're doing, especially like, if you as a customer thought that your brand represented one thing and then they start latching themselves onto the latest trend, you as a customer, you just start to feel alienated. And the wider you place that gap between the customer's trust in you and your brand, that spells death for a lot of companies. Yeah. And it's happening faster than ever, right?
Yep. I'll tell you this one thing. So I work with a nonprofit, and the nonprofit was taking coffee beans from Africa, and they were basically trying to say, hey, if you choose to have coffee for your employees, why don't you, for 5 cents more, buy them from us? It's literally from homegrown farms in Africa, right? and it's 5 cents more, but it's a conscious choice. Will you buy from us? And so that started out good, and we got companies to do it. But then all of a sudden, we were like, well, we need to get K-Cups because we wanted to get K-Cups because there were certain companies that had K-Cup machines. And then all of a sudden, they were like, well, we don't do that because that doesn't believe in our sustainability model and stuff like that. And I'm like, I totally would love to also be as green as possible, but we're going to spend so much energy, like, I don't know how to describe it, like being all things to all people, attacking all these challenges, that we're not going to take the time to just keep saying, these are farmers in Africa that are going to do those things. You know what I mean? And so, like, I'm not anti the planet, but I'm saying, like, you can't have 10 causes. You know what I mean? You just
right, no doubt. You have to figure out what aligns with you and a couple things, and just drive that messaging until it's perfect. I mean, we do these one-liner exercises for our clients, and part of doing that is to get them to start thinking at a high level. What do we do? What value do we provide? What problem do we solve? And so those one-liner exercises can really get them down to that granular level, and to be like, hey, if I'm coming to anyone walking up to me on the street, give me your one-liner. If you can explain it to the layperson that's walking down the street, that's really valuable.
That was one of the things that when we were starting to talk about your brand is, like, in a world where they're bombarded by so many things, your value better be digestible and sticky. And so that was, that's one of those things that I think is important. One more thing about, the idea of, your house being built on sand. I think that one of the things that I want to make sure that people hear is that I'm not saying that you can't use Google. I'm not saying you can't use Facebook. I'm not saying any of those things. But they're useful tools, and, that we leverage them all the time. We're just aware going in that things will change, could change, and let's be proactive versus reactive, okay? And so if I already have, I want to say this without sounding political. If I already have the like what to do in case of emergency handbook on my desk, right? Like, it's going to be a whole lot better if tragedy happens, So the reason why I was saying not political is that when 9/11 happened, I don't know how the Patriot Act was written in 30 days when it was, I don't know how to describe it. It was, that a think tank had the Patriot Act on a shelf, right? Yeah, and so that's,
these Congress people don't know what they're signing a lot of the times because it's some think tank,
Yep.
Some NGO or whatever that's writing it already for.
But they were ready, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing, and this isn't a political ad to say whether it was right or wrong or indifferent, but my point is that if they waited for 9/11 to happen and then got to work, it would be years before they figured out how to solve this thing, and people would have already forgotten. But if they already have these contingency plans on the shelf and ready to go, when crap hits the fan, they're ready, and they move and they pivot and they keep the country believing. You know what I mean? That is sort of the way proactive marketing is. It's like, if Facebook changes the rules, like, we have contingency plans built into our entire approach so that we're ready to rock. We use them, but we also keep healthy skepticism.
Right. That's why you have things that, like a gap assessment, to put a 3 to 5 year roadmap together to kind of see into the future, knowing that these things are going to happen, right? We can't always plan for them, but if we have a system in place, if we have an ed calendar in place, these things can feel more and more like blips rather than a catastrophic, level 7 earthquake, right? You definitely have to consider this. I mean, it's essential, because in this fast-paced environment, you're going to be treading water if you don't have a system in place.
That's my argument. That's my argument. Is that if you don't have a lifeboat, you won't be able to swim for very long. You know what I mean? So that was the thing I wanted to make sure, is I made sure to dispel that. You know what? I'm not saying don't use these platforms. The other thing that I want to do is just like the whole history repeating itself, you're doomed to repeat it. No, what's the expression say?
Right. If you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat
Exactly.
it.
You know what I mean? And so this has been going on almost since the birth of the internet. And if you think we're past that, Apple privacy, Amazon's big announcement today. What about when a new subject social media platform comes to market, like TikTok? I mean, I don't know whether people know how many companies saw the dangers of TikTok and then decided, you know what, we need to build that too. So Facebook has Facebook Watch, and you can click a button and it literally I call it doom scrolling. In other words, it doesn't take you back into normal Facebook. It keeps you in what feels like TikTok. Short videos without end. YouTube has YouTube Shorts to compete with TikTok. If you were to close down one of these apps and start it up again, the homepage of Facebook or the homepage of YouTube doesn't start up again. The functionality, it opens again in Shorts mode, meaning it goes, oh, you quit doom scrolling, come back in and you can doom scroll again, as opposed to coming to the homepage and selecting to doom scroll. Because nobody knows that, like, the time of Twitter's not time on page, but time on app, nobody can touch that. You know what I mean? And so it's like crazy. So my point is that we think, oh, I think that we're on level playing ground. It's like something new is going to come out, man. The technology curve is straight up, and then that thing's going to come out. You're going to have mass adoption on it. Comes out. You have mass adoption on it. When you have mass adoption on it, marketing companies come and they want a piece of that action, and they give it to the marketing company for free. The marketing companies go to their clients and say, I have an untapped market where people are doom scrolling till they die and your ads are part of it. Amazing. And then you wake up one day, it's like, oh, by the way, that's gone. And if you want to stay in front of those doom scrollers, you can still do it. In fact, we can target it even better, but you're going to pay for that privilege.
I mean, what is it? Organic reach on Facebook was something like 2% now. That's exactly what happened with Facebook. They drew you in with a free thing, set you up in the biggest mall in the world, and pulled the rug out from under you, right? I mean, so we have to be ready for things like that.
My article, I said Starbucks was the most loved company in the world. They thought that 30 to 40% of the people that saw their ads would see them forever, and then they woke up and it's down to 2%. So even if Starbucks is the growth that Starbucks has had and likes, I made the argument that I don't even think that they're back to their former glory when they took it away, because, you know what I mean? At a 2% reach multiplied by, used to have 40% reach, it's just weird. It's just they never caught up to their former. I don't believe they did. Now, they would know more than I would. I'm just doing the simple math between Google Trends and other things like that. I mean, what a hard thing to tell your boss, to say, oh, by the way, people love us by the millions, and it's like, so cool. What can you say to them? Well, we got to pay all over again to talk to them still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're kind of starting from scratch all over again. And it's hard. It's hard to build up that audience that you once had.
Well, I mean, they won't let you have it for free anymore. You're going to have to just pay for it. Now, keep in mind, the targeting is still second to none. I can get coffee drinkers in this town that want the $1 McDonald's coffee. I can target that specific person. I can do that. You know what I mean? And bring a value proposition to say, spend $2 more and don't have heartburn all day, or whatever coffee drinkers.
Right. Well, or now they have Twitter Blue or something where you can pay like $2.99 a month and have access. I don't know what the features are outside of regular Twitter, but people are seeing the opportunities. Platforms are seeing the opportunities.
Yep.
And if you want your data to be protected, if you don't want them to sell your data, I always say, like, if you're being given a product for free, like a Facebook or Twitter or something like that, if the product's free, that means that you're the product, right? Like you're the person being mined for data. what do you think their business model is?
The social dilemma all over again. Like I'm a big Kevin O'Leary guy. I think he's the funniest part of Shark Tank, and he has this relationship with his son Blake. And sometimes he rags on Blake, and then he tells stories where Blake got the better of him. And he's talking about Twitter, and he said, not Twitter. He's talking about Tesla, and he goes, "What do you think about Tesla, Dad?" He goes, "Oh, I think it's a waste. I want to short that stock. It doesn't make sense. It's a car company with stock price that high." He's like, "Only an idiot would invest in that." And Blake beats him, and he's like, "No, Dad, you're the idiot." Because what Tesla's doing is every car that drives is reporting data back, and we're learning everything about every driving habit in the world, and we're going to solve the driving calamity through automation. So you're the idiot. It's a data mining company. It's not a car company. And then he's like, "Oh," it was so cool. Like, I like Kevin O'Leary because he's like, "Oh, you're right. I am the idiot." You know what I mean?
Right. What you never hear him say, you hardly ever hear Kevin O'Leary say, "Oh, I was wrong on this," or "I was wrong on that." He's very headstrong. So I think that's great when, the new generation can kind of influence the old, or kind of point out where the old generation is kind of missing opportunities. You see that a lot, with Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, where they won't touch certain new technologies. And I don't know if it's because they don't understand them and they're just resistant, but they're just like, "Nope, not touching that. I'm going to continue to buy Coca-Cola and Levi's and, Walmart and all these big brands." And now we have this new frontier with AI and the metaverse. I mean, it's all coming to a head. So marketers are going to have to be ever more diligent. And
well, we have 3 more minutes. And so I don't even know why I'm brave enough to go here. But what I like about Warren Buffett is he doesn't invest in things he doesn't understand. And when I start to think about the people that lead this country, when we are starting to elect people at the top of the food chain, and they're 70 years old and older on both sides of the table. This isn't an argument on one side versus the other. We're electing the leaders of our country that I'm pretty sure can't operate their own cell phone. That's a problem. I think that the technology is such a huge player in this world that you can't be younger than 35 to run for office. And I don't think you should be older than, give me a number, whatever that is. There's a sweet spot. Because I believe that, society is based upon a roadmap of understanding. And I think it's going to be important that our leaders on both sides of the table know how to play with the rest of the world, the way the rest of the world.
No doubt. You see governments always playing catch up to these new technologies. You saw it with the internet, and you're seeing it now with other decentralized Web3, all that kind of stuff. You have people that are making decisions for the next 2 or 3 generations that were born in the 40s. Right. So a lot of Americans are starting to think, hey, maybe we should have, either term limits or age barriers or something like that. Whatever it can be, because you need to start getting on the same page.
Yeah. And that leads us to our next advertisement for the next time Roy and I are on together. We just had our I don't know whether it's published yet, but we basically published an article for VentureBeat that talks about Web 3.0, that talks about the metaverse, that talks about the new technologies that are coming down the pike, how it's going to impact you, some moral decisions, some tactical decisions, all of that stuff. And the next time Roy and I are together, we're going to be unpacking what we got published for VentureBeat. So, Roy, thanks for joining me today. This has been wonderful. If you are if you're a subscriber to the show, that's wonderful. Click on the notification bell. I want to make sure that these episodes get brought back to you as often as possible. We try to go live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Check out our Facebook group, which is CMO Marketing Roundtable. And also, if you go to fairtechuniqueprocess.com, we outline that comprehensive approach that we were talking today, and learn from it. Try to apply it to your own marketing. If you have any problems or challenges doing it, reach out. We'd love to see if we can help you in any way, shape, or form. So thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next time.